Have you ever noticed about any political leader that poses as a revolutionist or either that poses as a person a who is a who is an opponent on a white monopoly capital that poses as a revolutionist? These political goblins, these political wimp, these political punks that are seeking relevancy, you know, um, concealed or disguised in the gowns of being revolutionist. On the other hand, they use that to dupe South African masses, especially, to sequester and support them in any shape or form of whatever that they anticipate to establish as they venture out as and pose as political revolutionists. These are goblins, these are punks, these are political wimps. Why am I saying this? All right, let me unpack this for you to perceive a proper understanding of what I'm trying to portray here. It is, you know, it's a mind boggling and it is very appalling, to see politicians who seek or who project themselves to be the revolutionists who are fighting white monopoly capital. How would you fight white monopoly capital if you're still wearing Adidas, which is a European brand, and indirectly you're basically supporting white monopoly capital by buying clothes brands like Adidas, Nike, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Balmain. That's what politicians were, and they were all of these European brands. And if you could just assess that, if you could surveillantly look that in a broader picture, you will find out, or you will conclude that that very same money comes from a black hand to support white entities, white businesses. And you could even go the extra mile trying to assess their lives. They still go and eat in restaurants that are white owned. So automatically, they are basically supporting those European businesses. You see, people are flooding to restaurants like McDonald's, KFC, Spur, and what's not and so forth. We understand the concept of what you might call this franchise, but if a black person is franchising McDonald's, it literally doesn't mean that the money that McDonald's generates, it goes direct to that particular individual. It still belongs to European elite. So at some point, somewhere, somehow, you basically supporting them in advance because by franchising, you branching them out. You enlarging their territory by taking that franchise. You can have this hubris attitude of saying, no, man, this McDonald's is owned by me. You don't own the brand. That is why you're renting the brand. So if you taking a purchase of a franchise and it happens automatically that as a black person you're owning ShopRite or either Pick and Pay or Checkers, no, you're just enlarging their territory. You're just still supporting European entities. They are local businesses, but you don't support them. Wearing Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Mario Botticelli, Boss, all of these European brands. You even see your kids attending like white elite schools while you're still fighting white monopoly capital. If you have this exorbitant trust, in black ideas, in black businesses, in black framework of infrastructures in our societies and in our community, why do you go the extra mile and take your kids to private institutions, to private school, like for instance, schools like St. John's and what's not and so forth? The list is countless. Your kids are playing with other white kids over there. They are friends. There is another story that CIC, President Julius Malema, shared to say he had from his son that he hates white people, and he rebuked and reprimanded her son by saying, I don't hate white people. We just differ in terms of the interest, and I'm fighting for black majority. So that comes across as if I hate them. I don't resent them at all. I like them, but you're supporting their institutional infrastructures academically by paying exorbitant ransom of school fees on those particular institutions. So at some point, somewhere, somehow, you are intrinsically supporting these white elite. You're supporting white monopoly capital. On the other hand, you also posing as this political goblin, to say you are a revolutionist, you're fighting white monopoly capital. It starts with very smaller things. As long as there are breads that are produced by black businesses, but you choose to go and buy bread at Woolworth, you also supporting these European brands. You're still supporting white monopoly capital. If black people, could literally come to these senses, when you're holding your last 100 rand, let me just make a typical example, hypothetically speaking. If you're holding only 100 rand, you should ask yourself, where is this money going? Is it going to support black businesses, or either is it supporting white businesses? So if you go to ShopRite and you know that this money is literally directly going to support white monopoly capital, then take that very same 100 rand, bring it back into your pocket. Look for black owned entities, black owned businesses to support. That, with that having said, I've just thought that's one of the tools you can use, to resist, to withstand white monopoly capital. But if you're still buying on their shops, wearing their clothes, taking your kids to these white private institutions, you're still supporting white monopoly capital. So to pose as a revolutionary goblin, as a wimp, as a punk, as a politician, to use that narrative in order to win masses, because you know very well that black people are still a little bit dubious. They are unconcerned and unaware. As long as you're a black person and posing as a revolutionist, they find it worthy, to sequester, to follow you, to take your constraints and your instructions, to be your fan, to be your patriot at some point, somewhere, somehow. So it is immutable. You cannot change this perception from people. As long as you are a black person posing as a political leader, saying that you're fighting white monopoly capital, that message, it basically resonates well with the South African inhabitants. It literally resonates well with people who were jeopardized by the apartheid regime. So at some point, somewhere, somehow, they get along with you. So as a political goblin, as a political wimp, as a political punk, you can use that to dupe masses. But at some point, somewhere, somehow, that's not how you should address things. So with that having said, it is that, in simpler terms, I could say there is no sincerity in politics. There is no integrity. It's fine. You can spoof people with these by speaking directly unto their hearts. But this is just a subversive element, to fragment, their anger towards white monopoly capital, knowing very well that at the end, you will literally not fight for them. That is why people like Blade Nzimande, Comrade Blade Nzimande, said about Malema, he's playing this role of zigzagging between the marginalized people, which is poor people, and the rich people. So at some point, somewhere, somehow, is trying to placate black people's anger. I'm referring to CIC. President Julius Malema is trying to placate black people's anger towards white monopoly capital, the imperialist people who colonized our country. So he could see that the anger has been exacerbated amongst black people. So he's playing that role of placating their anger and say, no, I'm going to represent you. I'm going to speak on your behalf and all of these things. That is why these people are substantially a little bit calm. That's the game that they play. But we understand that majority of people are very oblivion